We just wrapped up lesson 2, which was about different type of data representations. So we did examples of histograms and box plots, not dot plots, because those seem to be pretty easy to explain. But the histograms and box plots are usually what we see the most on state testing and just testing in general. So you would have met the goal if you can tell me what the 5-number summary is. So table 3, can you tell me something about the 5-number summary? Anything about it? What it is, what it's used for. What it includes. It does include a median. Table 1, can you add on to that? What else does it include? The first quartile. Okay, good. And then table 2, what else is missing on this? Okay, good. That's our 5-number summary. And what do we use it for? Anyone can say. For box plots only. All right, to make a box plot, you have to be able to identify these 5 things in a set of data, in any set of data, in order to do that. What should you probably start with first when you're doing that? The median. All right, you definitely could not find, so I'll put kind of like a, find first. Although you could probably also identify your minimum and maximum pretty easily. But you cannot find your Q1 or Q3 without your median. You have to know where your middle is to know what parts your lower half and what parts your upper half to then find the middles of those. Okay, so always do that and always make sure that your data is in numerical order first. Today's data was all in numerical order, so that made it easy. We could get that step, but if it's not, it needs to be. So good, that's our 5-number summary. Then being able to use a dot plot, histogram, or box plot, which we'll practice too. Today was just day 1. All right, so was there anything confusing about the lesson that we maybe need some more help on? Or do you think that we're ready for the puzzle piece already? No questions? That all makes sense? Okay, so then that puzzle piece for algebra, so you'll find it in the algebra course, is this one. The other one should be done from yesterday. So this one, and you might have already started it, might have already gotten a good grade on it, that's fine. They're available if you want to get ahead, usually at the start of the week. But there's 5 questions on it. Some of it's review from lesson 1, so you'll see that at times. And then the rest is from lesson 2 specifically. If you have questions as you go, you can always ask, or you can ask someone in your group. Don't just give them the answer. Tell them like, okay, well, histograms are supposed to have this and blah, blah, blah. And then we'll check in. I'll give you, since it's only 5 problems, I'll give you like 10 minutes and then I'll just see if you need more time. So your math lab points will be doing the daily task, which is right now the puzzle. Yeah? Yes. If it doesn't read from there. So I think this one had about an average of like only 60% of people got it right, at least of those that submitted it so far. So then now, like on these times that I talk to you, just like say on your headphones. All right, but this one says the data set represents the shoe sizes of 19 students in a 5th grade PE class, which box plot correctly represents the distribution of the data. So I do need to view the pictures, but since it's a box plot, what numbers do I need? Not necessarily, don't tell me like the exact number, but what do I need to create a box plot? Your median. What else do I need? Good. This way, and then yes. Your quartile 1 and your quartile 3. So. Look at your data. Is it in numerical order already? So good. That saves me a step, otherwise I would have to rearrange it. And usually start with finding your median first, because you need that to find at least the Q1 and Q3. So it did tell me that there's 19 data points. How many numbers should I expect there to be in the middle? Just one. So if it's an odd number of data points, then that's pretty easy. I don't have to worry about taking the average of anything. But regardless, you can just go left, right, until you get that middle number or middle two numbers if there's an even amount. Okay, but sorry, a little devious. So then my median, and I'm down to just all 7s, so it's definitely gonna be 7. All right, but this one's gonna be my median. So then when I'm looking at my box plots, I can eliminate all of the ones that don't have that middle part of the box on the 7. Okay, so you can automatically probably eliminate at least a few future options. What is my minimum of this data? 4, I know I crossed it out, but it was 4. And then what was my maximum? So then you can also eliminate any answers that don't have it on the 9 for the maximum or the 4 for the minimum. Odds are you're probably down to now just 2 answer options, which would be your quartile 1 and quartile 3. So wherever your median is, I always say, like, don't cross out your median. If it's between the 2 middle numbers, then that's fine, you can cross out the 2 middle numbers. But like in this case, this one's my median, my 7 right here. So when I do like my median of my lower half, so this half, it'll go left, right, like don't cross out, if that makes sense. And then you keep going, left, right, right, left, right. My Q1 is 6. All right, so I should have 4 on each side, and I do, aside from the median. And so my Q1 is 6. So this part of my box should be 6. All right, what's my Q3 for this one? Okay, let's see, I have to do crossing out and on this screen. Not as easy, but. Yeah, it is. Good. So then you find the one that has the edge of the box on the 8. Any questions on that? And your answers could be shuffled too. So don't just copy your neighbor or whatever your friend says it is, like actually look. And that should match up. Okay. The other more missed one, let me pause this so I don't record anyone's. The dot plot displays the number of bushes in the yards for houses in a neighborhood. What is the median? Okay, median means middle, so my middle number. So in this case, you could either write out your data and do the crossing out like we normally do. When I have dot plots, usually I'll just cross out the dots. Granted, you can't cross out on your screen like how I do. You might need to do like some scratch work. You might actually have to write out the numbers and then do the crossing out. But it always has to go left, right, you know, until you get that middle number or middle 2 numbers. What did you guys say was the median? 8. Okay, so let's see. Now let's see what the answer to the here to figure it out. All right, so left, right, and yeah, I have 2 8s in the middle. When you take 8 plus 8 and then divide it by 2, you still get 8. So if it's the 2 numbers in the middle are the same exact number, then the median is really easy. Or you can go through taking the average and then it should be 8. So then, yeah, you just type in 8. I don't know if you like spell it out, if it'll mark it wrong. If it does, just let me know. I can add the point back. But that's what you should type. Good there? Okay. So then moving on, I think when I checked earlier, there was just 2 people still working. So just make sure those 2 people do that so I can add the points later. We're going to transition to this instead. Okay, hold on. So this unit is all about statistics, and I'm going to kind of front load you with a little bit more vocab. Some of it you already know because we covered it today. Some of it you probably know from prior years, or maybe you just need a refresher. So we're going to do that now. Let me pass out the note sheet. Okay, so measures of center and measures of spread, you're going to hear that so much in this unit. And the curriculum kind of assumes that you already are masters of that. They assume that all 9th graders are, but in my experience of teaching 9th grade, they don't all come with knowing what a measure of center and a measure of spread is. Some of these they remember, some of them they don't. So for example, you have this first blank. That's going to be measures of center. So measures of center. Those are going to be used to represent a central or typical value of a data set. So yesterday when we were looking at like the statistical questions and we talked about typical value, what did we say is like a synonym of that? Average, also known as your mean. So mean / average, they're the same thing, would be an example of a measure of center, a typical value. Like your batting average, so you typically, number of hits you get in a baseball game, things like that. Or average temperature, things like that. Typical values. So then mean or median, we just mentioned that. So median is another measure of center. Opposite of that would be measures of spread. Make that look more. So measures of center, and then this one's measures of spread. So measures of spread are used to describe the consistency of the data values, really like how spread out they are. Like range, interquartile range, or standard deviation. All right. Mean, how do you find the mean of anything? Or average? We did it a little bit today when we had to find the average of 70 and 72. Okay, so for this, to find the average of any like data set, no matter how big it is, it's going to be the sum of the values, so add them together, divided by your number of values. So when we have to take the average of the 2 numbers that are in the middle, we added them together, divided them by 2 because it was just 2 numbers that we added together, and that's how we got 71 earlier in the notes. So 70 to 72 is 142. Divide out by 2, you get 71. And that would give you your mean / your average. Median, we already talked about, but if you wanted to fill it in, middle number of your data set. So like, I don't think any of you drive yet, but there's a median in the road that separates like the traffic from the middle of the road. All right, we haven't talked about mode yet this year. What is mode? Or what does mode sound like? What do you remember? Let me see. Say that we're talking about grades in this class. Say we have like 56, 67, 70, 70, 81. What's gonna be my mode of that? So mode means like your most common. So most common value in your data set. So now that I told you that, what's my mode of this value set? 70. Random value set that's good. Could there be more than one mode? Yes, like if I decided to add to this data set another 66, then now my modes are 70 and 66 if I did that. All right, so you could have more than one. And that's why there's like a little extra. Now we have lower extreme, upper extreme. That's like a fancy way of saying what do you think? Minimum and maximum. So you can put that for your definition. Minimum for your lower, maximum for your upper. So it's the extreme. Minimum and maximum. All right, lower quartile, what do you think that's talking about that we've already talked about? So it's the median of your lower half of data. The median of your lower half of data. What did we call it earlier? Q1 or for first quartile. So maybe I'll put lower / first. And then I'll also put Q1 here. They all mean the same thing. Like the first quarter of your data. Upper quartile, what did we also call that? Q3. Or your third quartile, if you want to put that next to upper. And that's the median of, I'm just putting the quotation to be like median of now your upper half of data. So we have Q1, Q3, what's our Q2? Your normal median, the middle number of your entire data set. So just maybe put Q2 here so that we don't forget. That's like your first 50% of your data. Now like 75% when you get to quarter 3. All right, range we have not talked about today, but it does talk about how spread out your data is, because we mentioned that when we talked about measuring spread. So how do you find the range of your data set? Close, not dividing for the range. What? Yeah. No. Subtract. So maximum minus your minimum. That's how spread out your data is. So with that random example I gave you earlier. All right, when I was talking about like grades and stuff, I would say 81, my maximum minus my minimum, which is 66. Calculator, although I think it's 15, but let me just make sure. Okay, there we go. So then 15 is my range. That's how spread out my data is. It goes from 66 to 81, that's 15. Make sense? All right, now we also have interquartile range. So interquartile, quartiles we've talked about. Range we talked about. Anytime you hear range, you should be thinking of subtraction. Anyone want to throw a guess on what this is going to be? Egan? Perfect. So range, always think subtraction is how spread out it is. But then we're specifically talking about our quartiles. So Q3 minus Q1 is our interquartile range. Could have like the minimum and maximum be really far away from the rest of the data, so it might be better to do the interquartile range instead. All right, lastly, we have standard deviation, and it's this funky formula that's printed on your paper. In the past, like I think there was 1 year where I had to teach them how to do it by hand, but really in a calculator, even on Desmos, you can calculate the standard deviation really easy. And it really is just putting in your data and getting a number that back out to you in your calculator. This is like a really tedious process, and some of these symbols you might not be familiar with yet. So for right now, at this point, standard deviation is going to be that all that you need to know about it, at least, will be another measure of spread. The range and interquartile range are also other measures of spread. This one's another one, but it also includes the measure of spread, and then put that includes the mean. And that's really all you need to know of this. All right, so this will kind of, when we get to some of these other topics in algebra that we got into already, you can kind of be that like leader in your group that could remind them, oh yeah, this is how you find your interquartile range. It makes sense. Okay, just subtracting your quartiles and all of that stuff. Let's do just one example today. So this one down here, we have a given data set. And we have to find all of these different things about it. So I'm gonna let you just try it without me giving you much more guidance than the definition, and we'll see how you do. So as much of these as you can figure out based on this data set. Fill them in. Which one is to identify? The lower and the upper extreme. What's my lower extreme? And my upper extreme? Okay, class, agree, disagree? Okay, what do we disagree with? It should be what? 25, is that what you said? So, good thing to pay attention to. I mentioned it earlier, how do you always want to sort your data? Lowest to highest, the numerical order. This one's not, I know the other ones that we looked at were already. So then just take a moment, put it in numerical order. Because for some of them it might not matter, but for others it does. So then, and the way I do it is I'll make my list, cross them out, so that way I know that I didn't forget. 2 4s, 3 10s, 1 14, 1 15, 1 16. And then 22 and 25, really common mistake. Especially when you're used to seeing it from both sides given to you. All right, but good. Table 3, what's something else you could easily identify? Okay, median and mode, we'll do both. What did we get for the median? Okay, so median is middle number. And 25 is my upper extreme. So what is really important for median? Find the middle and to make sure that they're in order. So if you go based off of how they were given to you, yeah, it looks like 25 is the middle number, so I can definitely see how we got that, and I'm sure like they're not going to learn either. But when they're in order is when you then find your median. Okay. So not a big deal, so I already do the 10 now. And look, I have two numbers in the middle. What's my median going to be? 12. So we'll just do the math over here to make sure. We're going to take the average of them. 10 plus 14 is 24, divided by 2 is 12. That's my median. All right, and then we also said the mode is really easy to identify. What's my mode? Okay. Only one mode in this one? Yes. With 3 tens, no other number repeats 3 or more times. Okay, so we'll pause it there for today. We'll do the rest of them tomorrow. So even with your other math, you know, take